Good morning, church. Welcome to Woodcrest. I'd like to invite you to stand as you're able. Worship with us this morning. We got a new song this morning. Remember those walls that we called sin and shame? They were like prisons that we couldn't escape. But he came and he died and he rose. Those walls are rubble now. Remember those giants we called death and grave? They were like mountains that stood in our way. But he came and he died and he rose. Those giants are dead now. This is our God, this is who he is. He loves us. This is our God, this is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Remember that fear that took our breath away. Faith so weak that we could barely pray. But he heard every word, every whisper. And now that altar in the wilderness, tell the story of his faithfulness. Never once did he fail, and he never will. This is our God, this is who he is. He loves us. This is our God, this is who he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Who pulled me out of that pit? He did, he did. Who paid for all of our sin? Nobody but Jesus. Who pulled me out of that pit? He did, he did. Who paid for all of my sin? Nobody but Jesus. Who rescued me from that grave? Yahweh, Yahweh. Who gets the glory and praise? Nobody but Jesus. Who rescued me from that grave? Yahweh,
tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, when my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. There's nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Your presence, Lord. I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, when my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord.
Amen. You may be seated.
Thank you. Morning, church. Before I start, I'm going to dismiss the children. They can all head back outside to go to children's church. So I feel obligated to say that I am not the new pastor or an interim pastor. My name is Tyler DeWard. Today I have the pleasure to update you on a mission trip that I just returned from a little over a week ago. So that is why I'm here. So earlier this summer, you might remember Pastor Pete and you all commissioned me as I was preparing to spend 2 months in Africa. I am happy to say that our whole team made it back safely and we are adjusting back to our lives here very well. I wanted to share some highlights with you of my time living in Zambia. But first, I cannot thank you all enough for the support, the prayer, and all the kind words that you guys have shared with me. It's really made a big difference, and all of our prayers and our work were answered by God, who is so faithful to us. So this trip consisted of myself and 7 other good friends that I go to school with from the University of Iowa. We were sent out by our college ministry called the Salt Company to their connections that they have through the International Mission Board in Lusaka, Zambia. And the pictures will cycle through. They're in no particular order. But on our 10-hour layover in Doha, Qatar, we met 3 other members of the team from a church in Jackson, Mississippi, called First Baptist Jackson. These friends of ours were connected through the missionary hosts who live full-time in Lusaka, who originally came and are sponsored by that church, First Baptist Jackson. And then a few weeks after we arrived, we also received 2 more team members from that church as well. We lived in a compound that was owned by the International Mission Board to host missionaries and give them a place to stay. We had 6 college guys living in a 2-bedroom flat, but it was a blast to be able to spend time with them and live with them. Many of the memories were just simply made by trying to cook in a tiny kitchen without the slightest idea of what we were doing. But also, we had so many deep conversations about our faith, the church, and how to be strong young men in a world that further denies the truth of the gospel every single day. But now for a bit about Zambia. If you're familiar, Zambia is a country found in south-central Africa, just below the equator. It is a third-world country that is rapidly developing from foreign investment from countries like China and Saudi Arabia. This is because Zambia is rich and has a lot of large copper resources. There is some industry growing in the country, but outside of the capital city of Lusaka, there isn't much to be found, much work to be found, especially in the smaller villages. Our primary job while we were there was to reach students who attend universities in Lusaka. Most of them are health institutions, and to reach them and to spend time investing in them and discipling them. While 2 months or 8 weeks is a long time, it flew by very fast, and the main idea was that instead of simply only going to evangelize and run around from neighborhood to neighborhood, we want to spend time discipling them and really investing in them so that they may go disciple their friends and family members when we leave the country to equip them. So this is something that the early church did, as we all know, in the book of Acts, which we spent a lot of time studying. The disciples had a large task at hand to spread the good news of Jesus and his sacrifice for us, but they needed to do it in a smart and effective way rather than just running around and sharing the news. So the earliest Christians took their time building up the new church, and we see many examples of this in the Bible, like in 1 Timothy 3 and Matthew 28. So that was kind of our anchor as we spent our time there in Zambia. There are quite literally hundreds of amazing stories that I could share with you in my time there. But there's one in particular I wanted to share. So I'm going to go off script for this one, actually, because it's better if I do so. But I remember we were about 2 weeks into the trip, and there was a team of 13 of us at our greatest amount, and our host, his name is James Adair, awesome guy. He was talking to us in our Monday meeting at about 9 in the morning, and he was just checking in with us. Hey, how's everything going? Are you all meeting students on campus? And I was having a rather frustrating time because I wasn't meeting any students too well. So he said, hey, if anyone has free time this week, we spent a lot of time just kind of, dispersing and going to work with students individually. But he said there's a pastor named Moses Moyo, and he is from a neighborhood called Chelston in Lusaka. And he said he heard that there are students here and wondering if they had any free time to just work with him. And I was like, yeah, I got free time. I haven't been meeting with a lot of people. So I reached out to him and I texted him saying, hey, can we just meet at your church and just kind of feel everything out and see, where your ministry's at? He goes, yeah, of course. So I'm expecting to go to a rather developed church. So about a week later, I get in what is called a Yongo, which is like Uber over there. And we drive over there with two of my other friends. And we get to this rather rough part of town. And the church is a concrete pad with brick walls, and that's about it. And there's no chairs. And he sits us down, and he's just so grateful to talk to us about how we can help his ministry. Chelston is a rather rough neighborhood, unfortunately. And there happens to be a small health institution on the city limits just outside there. And he works through his church that is in Chelston to reach these students at this health institution. So he brings us over to this health institution. This is where it starts to get good. We were about 2 hours late, which I did not know, and we were not expecting to go visit a campus. So we meet 5 dedicated students there who have been so faithful to the Lord through the trials of this church, right? The church had not had a consistent pastor. Pastor Moyo was the first pastor out of seminary in that church's history. A lot of the congregation didn't even know what it meant to be a part of a Baptist church. So 5 students that we met there that have been so faithful in continuing his ministry. One of them is the entire worship team. One of them is the entire hospitality team. It was really, really cool. So we get there, and they're like, okay, let me show you around our campus, right? So we're walking around this tiny campus, and we get to the we get to the administration building, and this guy just comes bellowing out. And he goes, welcome, visitors, welcome, visitors. He points at me and goes, you must be Dutch. You're tall. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you. I'm expecting that this was set up by the students. I turn around to them. They're wide-eyed, have no idea what's going on. So I'm like, okay, this is great. Look at Pastor Moyo. He has no idea what's going on. He goes, my name is, I won't say his name, but he was the director of the university there. So I guess we caught him at a good time. So he shows us around, gives us a proper tour. He shows us their 2 classrooms and their bathroom facilities and their running water, which was pretty cool. And later he tells his secretary, bring some chairs into the conference room. Let's meet with our guests. And I'm like, what is going on right now? And the students are just kind of hanging behind. He took over the tour. I got to catch Pastor Moyo before we went inside, and he kind of looks at me and goes, don't mess this up. That's the only thing that he said to me. And I said, what? what are you talking about? Like, I thought you put this on. He basically, long story short, because the church that is in the neighborhood it has no power or no running water, so they can't study at nighttime. It gets dark at about 6 o'clock in Lusaka, so they can't study under the light, right? So for the longest time, he has been reaching out to this director of the university to be able to meet on their campus to just have light to study. So basically, for 3 years, he's getting denied, no, they can't do it. We found out later that the director happened to be a part of I forget what kind of church it was. I think it was a Seventh-day Church. And he was allowing that church to meet there, but he wasn't allowing this church to meet there. So anyways, we sit down and we're meeting with them, and his secretary's there. The students kind of sit in the corner of the room, and they're all wide-eyed, kind of like, sitting there. And Pastor Moyo and I sit at the head of the table. He's on the other side, and Pastor Moyo's just shaking. His leg is shaking. He's sweating. He's gripping the table. I'm like, what is going on right now? So I have my friend sitting next to me from our team as well. We introduce ourselves again, and Pastor Moyo opens us up in prayer. So while he's praying, I'm having my own prayer in my head saying, Lord, I have no idea what is going on right now and how you're going to use me, but please just speak to me this moment so I don't mess this up like he told me to. So basically he says, what can we do for you? And I explain that, I love your students that I met 5 minutes ago, and I can tell that they're great people, and we'd love to invest in them. And long story short, we talked for another 5-10 minutes just about this partnership and meeting on campus, and sure enough, he just goes, yeah, sure, why not? You're more than welcome to meet here on Wednesday night at 18 hours. So that was really cool. So I was like, sweet, mission accomplished. At this point, we had been gone from our guest house for about 3 hours. We were only expecting to be gone for about an hour. So quite the range of emotions are going through. But we get outside, and Pastor Moses starts crying and gets very emotional. He goes, you have no idea what just happened, right? God was so faithful over 3 years of trial and error and of many students going in and out of the system, many students going in and out of the church. He said we almost gave up so many times, but it was really cool to be at the end of God's work there. And your prayers and our prayers were answered that day, and they still today have a Bible study going on every Wednesday that I've been checking in on. And it was a pleasure to be able to attend that and teach some lessons. So there's a photo that'll cycle through of us sitting in some chairs. But yeah, that was a great story. So I just want to share that with you. But we saw so many examples of God's beauty, especially in just how beautiful and amazing the Zambian people are. I've never seen such a willingness to be kind, to learn and to share their culture before in my entire life. Not only are the people beautiful, but the country itself is also beautiful. There are the classic African animals we all watch on TV that we got to visit. We visited all this when we traveled about 7 hours south to Livingston, which is where Victoria Falls is, the largest waterfall in the world. This sits on the border with Zimbabwe and Zambia and is without a doubt the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That was at sunset there. Unlike the National Park Service here in the U.S., Zambia is not really worried about safety and just assumes you aren't stupid. So you can get some pretty incredible views of the massive wonder there. We were taken by my good friend David Shibanga from the church I attended called Twin Palm Baptist Church. I absolutely loved going to church there and attending some of the most beautiful and pure forms of worship I've ever seen in my entire life. There are lots of singing in native tongue and services. We're about 2.5 hours long, give or take, so buckle up. We're going to try that this morning. No, I'm just kidding. This church was the only Baptist theological seminary in the entire country, so it was amazing to be able to just meet so many pastors and deacons from all over the country who were so dedicated and passionate to spreading the love of Jesus all across even the most remote parts of Zambia. There's the Woodcrest in Twin Palm Baptist Church there. So I could share for hours, but we have another awesome mission trip to hear about next. So if you would, please pray for Twin Palm Baptist Church, Sandridge Health Institution and their Bible study, and the young men and women that we worked with, and the future people that they will work with. God is moving in Zambia, and it's very clear, and he has great plans for their future generation. So thank you so much for your prayers and trusting me to go out to spread the good news. So I really appreciate it. So thank you.
What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Can't be what we can't see. Can't speak when we can't breathe. Can't dance if we don't move our feet. It's a blur trying to keep pace. Days are running like they're in a race. Can't move if we're in our own way. I guess the crisis seals we've just one life to live, and no one knows what happens next. So what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Why are we wasting all the time like someone's making more? What are we praying for? What are we saving for? What if we could be the light that no one could ignore? What are we waiting for? Waiting, oh, waiting, oh, waiting, oh. Put the pen on a new page. Dream about what you could change and live it out before it's too late. The beauty of it is we've just one life to live, and no one knows what happens next. No. So what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Why are we wasting all the time like someone's making more? What are we praying for? What are we saving for? What if we could be the light that no one could ignore? What are we waiting for? Waiting for, waiting. What are we waiting for? praying for? What are we saving for? What if we could be the light that no one could ignore? What are we waiting for? 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 Love better and you love better. Our love will live on forever. If I love better and you love better, our love will live on forever. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Why are we wasting all the time like someone's wasting more? What are we praying for? What are we saving for? What if we could be the light that no one could ignore? What are we waiting for? 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 Tell me what you're waiting, what you're waiting, what you're waiting for.
First off, thanks, Tyler, for sharing. It's cool to see that trips like what we're going to talk about plant the seed for what God's going to do after they graduate. So it's cool that we got to share the morning with Tyler. And also that video is put together by Liam Reitzma. He's going to talk a little bit about just the joy he found in a connection. Tyler has always been the one when he was on trips to go around with the video camera and document and put it together. And Liam's mantra for the week was, I'm not Tyler, but I'm going to do my best to be him. And that was fantastic. So thanks, Liam. So I'm going to take you through a quick journey through some numbers of what our week looked like. So 10 days, roughly 230 hours from leaving the house to returning to the house for myself and many others. 32 initially had signed up. 27 ended up going. We went out with 3 rental vans. We only came back with 2, thanks to a failed computer chip. And so we added a U-Haul trailer. 7 stops on the first day going out. But we got that down to 3 stops on the first day of travel coming back. So progress. 9 projects or serving opportunities throughout the week, which equaled about 837 man hours over 4.5 days with our team. That included siding and roofing. That included painting, sanding, cleaning, and painting 33 rails, demoing 1 bathroom, painting 2 bedrooms and a hallway, putting together 2 concrete pads, digging them out and doing concrete pads, and then splitting what figured was roughly 250 logs, which came out to over 800 pieces of wood for camp to stow away. 5 nights of worship and encouragement together. 1 day in Yellowstone, 1 college tour visit, a few hours at a hot springs to end the week, and 1 ER trip. Hundreds of jokes, inside jokes, and memories that this group will have for eternity. But the final stat that I want to share is everything you're going to hear this morning. Tyler joked about 2 hours. They're not going to be 2 hours, but for the next 30 minutes, buckle up, because it's going to be a good time hearing about what God did in our group. But there were at least, when we left, 25 first-time decisions for Jesus from campers at the camp we were at, and they still had 2 weeks. What we did, yeah. We went to serve the camp so that they could focus on serving the kids for the week. So what you're going to hear this morning is a microcosm of what God did in 10 days through our group with Yellowstone Alliance Adventure. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Dan Norby, who is a success story on he went as a van driver, and I'm convinced he's going to be a leader now, but he's going to be emceeing for the morning.
Thanks, Will. All right, so before we get started, we'll mention something about jokes. You ready, guys? All right, dad joke time. So my dog ate a whole bunch of Scrabble tiles, and I took him to the vet. No word yet. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm here all night. I flew in from California. My arms are tired. Have you ever had a situation where you knew exactly what you were going to do, you had it all planned out, you were ready to go, you just needed to get started, but then something happens, something kind of tweaks your focus? So we arrived at camp, the YAA camp, the Yellowstone Alliance Adventures Camp, late Saturday afternoon, early evening, and we get all of our bags to our respective places, and the Woodcrest leadership staff meets with the YAA staff. And we're doing our introductions, and we're talking about the projects, we're talking about just each other. Will has been going to this camp for quite a long time, over 10 years, 12 years, I don't remember what it was, but a long time. So he knew the director fairly well. And the director looks at Will and he says, so what is your goal this week? All right. So Will looks at him and says, well, here it is. And he lays out exactly what we're going to be doing on the work projects, and then that we have chapel time in the evening, and kind of what that looks like, and it sounded good to me. Let's go, you know. And then Jim Hawthorne, the director, looks at Will and he says, well, we have a goal here as well. And that's the moment where I thought, am I really focused on what I should be focused on? Because we're there to serve the camp. The camp was not there to serve us. But what Jim said was that everyone that comes to this camp will meet Jesus. Very simple, not really profound, but right on the money. Now, these camp staff, from the adult leaders to the student leaders, were awesome, and they did serve us, which was just crazy. The attitudes that they had, the fruits of the Spirit, kindness, gentleness, self-control, and patience were amongst them, because we were a wild group. We interrupted their normal schedules and routines. Well, I'm going to have students come up and talk about their experiences. And we can't really have you experience the same things we did. It's just not enough time. But as you hear these students talk, listen to their heart. Listen to what God has done in their lives. Because at that point, you will be able to get a glimpse into what happened that week. I'm going to start off with Abby.
Good morning, Woodcrest. My name is Abby Myers, or my Chitse, as some of the girls would like to say is my call sign. I want to thank you all for being here to talk about the mission work that we've been doing and how God is really working in our lives. And we really appreciate you taking your time on a Sunday that's not a normal service, but it's still definitely a good one. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience as being a student leader and my personal experience of the trip. Myself, along with Luke Thorson, got chosen by Will to be student leaders on this trip. I don't really think we were fully ready for all of it, but by God's grace and having lots of patience, we did it. Going into the trip, I didn't feel worthy of being a leader because my faith was super rocky and not in a good place. I prayed and prayed about it and trusted the Lord with going. Will asked us every day to read a psalm, and there is this psalm on the trip that I read that really put me at peace with my decision of going. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait patiently for the Lord, be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord." I really heard the Lord speaking to me that day. Even though I wasn't following through with my faith before the trip, during the trip gave me a whole different perspective. I realized how difficult, but also how fun being a leader can be. My prayers really worked. I waited patiently for the Lord to speak to me, and he did. Wednesday night of the trip, I felt him, and he showed me that I was on the right path. I wouldn't have changed the trip for anything, maybe to even stay longer. The girls in the quote-unquote babe cave have changed my perspective on how I see life. They truly live every day to the fullest, and I can see God living through every single one of them. I love hearing all their funny stories, watching Julia catch moths with a trash can, Avery's love for Costco, and Alyssa's love for Formula One. I know that I had an impact on them, but they truly had an impact on me. Our theme was encouragement, and by the end of the week, we all had encouraged each other so much. No words or photos can describe this trip perfectly, but one word I would use to describe it is family. Everyone on this trip is like a second family. We cried, laughed, joked, and cared for each other in a way I have never seen on all of the mission trips that I've been on. And that's what makes this one special. God has truly blessed me. Going back to college in a few weeks, I will bring my strong faith and these connections that I made and our quote list to read when I need a laugh. Lastly, I want to thank Will for accepting me as a leader. It's not an easy decision, choosing someone who recently just became an adult to be in charge of teens who are around their age. Thank you for all the wise words and laughs. Thank you for putting up with me and being there for me the past few years. You are truly the best. Remember to wait patiently for the Lord and his plan for you, because I never expected this trip to have a strong impact on me that it did. Thank you.
Abby, no, stay up here. Abby, stay up here. All right, so now we're going to have Brooke.
Thank you. My name is Brooke Sywick, and I first started coming to Woodcrest last fall. I came in not knowing anyone at all, and it took me so long to remember people's names. Like, literally, they would say, "Hi, Brooke," and I'd have to be like, "Hey, you." But eventually, I did get to know people and their names a little bit better after Sundays and Wednesday nights. When I heard about the opportunity to go on a mission trip with the youth group, I knew I wanted to go right away, even though I had no idea how it would go. I had never been on a mission trip before, and I didn't know the people I'd be going with that well. But nonetheless, I knew God was calling me to go. And I'm so glad I went. From the start of the 15-hour drive to Montana, everyone was so welcoming and nice. And I was talking to people that I'd barely seen before the trip. When we finally got to Montana, you'd think maybe I'd be getting a little tired of everyone after being stuck in a van with them for 15 hours, but that was not the case. This group even made the ride fun, and when we got to the camp, it wasn't any different. I got to be in a tent with a great group of girls, the Babe Cave, and you could say they made every night interesting. Here's a picture of some of them trying to catch a moth, as Abby mentioned. One night, keep in mind I was trying to sleep. Every day at the camp was fun, and it felt like I was on a trip with my best friends. Even though I hadn't spent much time with anyone from the group before the trip, it felt like I'd known them forever. Along with the youth group, the people at camp were also very welcoming and helpful. I was working as a counselor for for the kids at the camp, and the other workers were super patient and willing to help us. Along with that, I loved the kids in my group, and they were a big factor of God showing me that I had a role and purpose at the camp. God used the people I was surrounded by to show me that I was exactly where he wanted me to be. I felt so encouraged by everyone I was with, especially the youth group. There was always someone there to include me, support me, or laugh at my joke, even if it was bad. But don't worry, we had good jokes too. I came back from the trip with thousands of inside jokes, a few less hours of sleep because of that moth. Oh, it's not up there anymore. And lots of new friends. I know that just because I'm new doesn't mean I'm the only one who made new friends. Pam pointed out the other night that while we were encouraging each other, which you'll hear more about later, a lot of people started off by saying, "I didn't know you that well before this week," which shows the many connections that were made during the trip. I want to say thank you to everyone in the youth group. Even though you've known each other for a long time, you were excited to include someone new, and you guys definitely are the ones who made the trip fun. It's cool to see how people can go from strangers to good friends in 1 week. Thank you.
All right, Julia.
It's hard to sum up those 10 days of being together, praying, laughing, teasing each other, ranting about our jobs to each other, worshiping together, encouraging each other, hiking some pretty sketchy hills, screaming at mice, killing moths, and sitting in vans for what felt like eternity together in just a few sentences. What beautiful and impactful memories I will treasure. Just a couple weeks before the Montana trip, I had gone out into the wilderness on a school trip for a week and a half. Coming back, I had funny stories to share and some special memories, just like I had from this one, but Montana had something more. I felt encouraged, fulfilled, and more on fire for the Lord. What really struck me again was the feeling of being part of a community of believers, God's church, and the power and beauty of that. In Bulgaria as an MK, I had sensed that, but it's been a long time since then. It was the way people cared for each other and the way they were honest and vulnerable with each other. It was gathering late into the night as one to seek the Lord, and the next morning working side by side with those same people. It was watching God work in other people's lives and in my own. It's really hard to describe, but I saw why God wanted us to be in community. I learned that we become so much stronger. I remember the night when we worshiped and prayed together, and when the leaders came up and looked each one of us in the eyes and encouraged us. The love and tears that were shared between the people was just such a beautiful display of an overflow of God's love. And as Jesus says in John 13:35, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, by the way you love one another." What a beautiful witness for him. Thank you.
Avery.
Good morning, Woodcrest. We appreciate you all for coming this morning to hear about our mission work in Montana. I'm going to cover what it was like growing in faith with our time spent in God's creation, highlighting some of the hikes we did outside of serving. Before I begin, I just want to put forward that this couple-minute review could never encapsulate nearly a portion of what it was like to be on this mission trip. From the small jokes that we came up with to the most memorable full days, words on a piece of paper spoken to you cannot highlight what it was like to be at this place with these people. I can speak on behalf of all of us that we not only benefited from the serving at camp during the week, but we impacted vastly by being able to spend time in God's creation with each other. Although anyone here could give you lots of stories and experiences on these hikes, there was one recurring theme that we shed light upon this week, being encouragement. There were lots of moments of encouragement throughout the 10 days, from lifting each other up while doing labor around camp to laughing with each other as we settle arguments between 8-year-olds. But I can confidently tell you that every person here was encouraged and lifted up by the power of God through each other this week. We went on many different hikes throughout the trip as a way to be able to feel the presence of God and his perfect creation. Everyone was already jumping right in, as on day one, after hours of driving, we stopped at the Painted Canyon in Roosevelt National Park. There was a trail which led to a small mountain. In the process, there was a couple of setbacks, one including Alyssa getting nearly stuck on the side of the steep hill on the way up. A couple of days later, we took a trip to Yellowstone National Park before starting our week of mission work. Many different hikes were completed, including the one that a group of us girls did that was around 6.5 miles. I can speak on behalf of some to most of us when I say we are not regular hikers in the least. I know I can say that with confidence. If I remember correctly, after maybe a good half a mile in, some of us looked at each other wondering what we were thinking when we chose to do this hike. But we kept going. Close to the halfway mark, as we were about to loop around, we figured out that we were completely out of water. But we told each other we were all still killing it anyway, so we kept going. Many sunburns, bug bites, and cramping legs later, we finished our hike. Toward the end of our trip, we visited a waterfall, just about a mile of a walk, and a group of us decided to climb this mountain on the side. Let me mention this was not a marked off trail, just of us deciding it was a brilliant idea. After many bumps, scrapes, and tumbling rocks, you can see a photo of us at the top of that very mountain. It wasn't a complete breeze, but we did it. You can see the small victories that each person on this trip encountered wasn't just by chance. We were able to complete these hikes because of who we are as a group, because of the way we pick each other up and encourage each other. There were trials, but it didn't stop one person from getting to the top of their mountain this week. There was another recurring theme that was revealed to us, and that was our tendency to keep wanting more. Even after trials of these hikes, we kept going on them, and it's because of this feeling of being encouraged to make it to the top of that mountain that pushed our faith to the next level. More proof of this in God's presence was shown when Julie and others would create their own nature hikes back at camp in the woods just so they could keep feeling this. I can confidently say that these tendencies would never have made possible if our group wasn't our group. We provided encouragement and hope for each other, which has not only given us strength in the Lord, but trust in each other. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 tells us, "Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." That is our challenge to you, is from long hikes and steep mountains to you in your everyday life, encourage someone and build someone up just as Christ has called you to do. Thank you.
Megan.
Good morning, church. I'm Megan, student, and I'm going to be talking about my experience working with the day campers throughout this week. It was such a blessing to work with these kiddos and help out with the counselors. So a brief overview of how our days looked would include a scheduled agenda with a day full of activities with the kids. There were around 70 kids that were there that we worked with the day campers, grades 1st through 5th, and they're broken up into color groups that we were with. They came around 8:30 in the morning, full of energy and ready for the day, and left around 4:30 in the afternoon, still somehow full of energy. In the morning, it usually started off with a group activity on the field, as you can see, and then a scavenger hunt, another fun activity, and then we'd have chapel together and lunch. After lunch, there'd usually be free time, water time, snack, fireside, little skit, and then it'd be time for them to leave already. This week with the day campers, they had themed week, so this week was water week. So as you can imagine, us 5 all got pretty wet. In this photo, you can see there's me and this other counselor, Joe. I'm completely soaked right before going into chapel because the kids just think it's the funniest thing in the world to come up with their sponges and water guns and soak us counselors. Their personalities came out more and more each day, and it was so fun to see them come out. They were little and big personalities. It was so fun to see them play carpet ball, which they all seemed to love and got very competitive, or making bracelets with Brooke, which was like the highlight of the week. All the girls loved doing that. One of my favorite memories with the day campers was being in chapel with them and learning all the kids' songs and actions. Most of the kids have been there before, so they were screaming the songs by heart, and us 5 were just struggling to keep up with the lyrics and actions, but it was so fun to see them, so excited to sing them. Overall, it was such a fun experience and such a blessing to work with these kids and to have a little bit of a different perspective of the trip since we weren't painting a fence or doing hard physical labor like some of the guys were. And we were super sad to leave by the last day. We were saying our goodbyes, and all the kids were sad to leave us as well. They were wanting us to come back already. But overall, it was such a wonderful trip to remember, and I'm grateful God blessed us to work with these kids for the week.
All right, Alyssa.
Okay, hi, my name is Alyssa. So I will also be talking about my experience with the kids, except for I had a slightly different experience going into it and a very different perspective. So I initially signed up to help with the kids, thinking that it would be fine because I work with kids on a daily basis back here. But we got there. I think everything kind of set in, and I was terrified to work with the kids, not knowing what we're going to do, what the schedule was, how many kids I was going to have. So I made it clear to Pam and Will that I did not want to do the kids anymore. Later then, I found out that we were one person short, and I ended up having to do the kids after a little come to Jesus moment Will had with some of us to try and figure out who would do it. But I had no idea what God had in store for me this week through all the highs and the lows of it. So Monday rolled around, and it was about 8:15, and we all got introduced to our counselors. And I happened to get paired with the one counselor that was on van duty. So every day, a van drives into downtown Bozeman and picks up some of the kids at the church. So I had to navigate check-in all by myself, meet all 13 of my kids and parents by myself, well, with the other 4 counselors that I had just met nearly 5 minutes ago. So that was an interesting part of the day. And then we just kind of jumped right into it. I met my counselor, and we were on the move doing our schedule. As you can see in the picture above, it was a rough day. That was at about 1 o'clock, and we still had a few hours left to go. I was both physically and mentally exhausted at that point. The kids really take a toll on you after about 5 hours. So that was great, but we got through it. I was a little frustrated at the end of the day and didn't know if I could make it, but then Tuesday morning rolled around. I was in a better mood. I expected what was going to happen. I knew the schedule, and I would chalk it up to 2 things that got me through the day, and that would be God, through the 5 different prayers I had already said that morning for patience and Crystal Light caffeinated packets, I drank about 240 milligrams of caffeine that day between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. So that's probably not healthy, but I'd like to thank those two for really getting me through the week. But Tuesday was great. It was one of the best days that I've been able to experience, just being able to hang out with the kids and really see their personalities grow. Then Wednesday came, and it was kind of a reset to the schedule. We were gone at MSU for the morning, and we came back. My counselor was then again gone, so I had to navigate another 13 kids all by myself. Well, one of the 13 was both exhausted and dehydrated, throwing up during our skit time. So that was an interesting thing to have to figure out by myself. And then Thursday came, another full day that we got to have. It was the longest day, but one of the best days that we had there. I got to wake up that morning and just be super ready for it. Prayed a lot, drank more caffeine, got through the day, and definitely made some great connections with the kids that day, especially through getting soaked in the water, as you can see in that picture on the screen as well. And then Friday. Friday was a really hard day for completely different reasons that I had at the beginning of the week. It came to about 12:45, and it was time to say goodbye to all the kids, and I had a very, very hard time with that. I was very sad to see them leave, and if you would have told me that on Monday, I probably would have laughed in your face. So we got to say all of our goodbyes, and we had kids basically hanging off of our limbs telling us to stay or come back next year. And then we left for the hot springs that afternoon, and for the next few hours, I felt just kind of empty, feeling like I hadn't finished my job. But then I was talking to Will about it, and he said that we would have not been able to see them again anyway. So that kind of helped me just kind of be okay with it, be at peace with it. But again, I would have laughed in your face if you would have told me that I would have been sad to be at the hot springs and that I would have rather been with the kids. But overall, that was probably one of the best experiences that God has ever given me, just knowing that I've been able to meet tons of different kids and make an impact in their life, whether that just be them wanting to go back to camp next year or making a relationship with Jesus or continuing that relationship. It's just so inspiring to be able to see that and have a part in that.
All right, well, we're getting closer to the end. We got about 4 more. Veronica?
Hi, my name is Veronica Hubbard, and I just wanted to start off real quick. I hope you can tell just based on what everyone has said so far and what you'll continue to hear, just how wonderful of an experience the trip has been. And I bet you're hearing a lot of the same things, a lot of, well, everyone felt so close, but that's truly what it was. It was one of the greatest experiences of our life, and I hope none of us ever forget that. So this is only the second mission trip I've ever been on. Last year I went to Life, and then there's this one. And I think regardless of that small number, I found it pretty easy for me to find one of the best things about these trips, and that is the intimate and personal bond that is formed between everybody in our group. I think it's truly amazing that throughout this trip, God not only helped us strengthen our relationship with Him, but strengthen our relationship with each other. Our bond as a youth group is very important. I believe that being close with each other isn't just beneficial to us as a youth group, but I think it's beneficial to Woodcrest as a whole. This trip just gave us the opportunity to see each other in a new way. And my intention isn't to call anyone out here, but I had another member of the group tell me during this trip that I was like a big sister to her. I told someone else that I viewed him as a brother. And I mention these just because I think those are such wonderful statements to say to someone else, and they help convey how close we had truly become during this week. Throughout the trip, there were many other ways in which we were able to become closer to each other. I know there were others who expressed their feelings to someone else that I didn't mention, and I also know there were people who felt themselves growing closer to this group in a way that they didn't mention out loud, and that's okay. The fact of the matter is that whether it was through intimate moments of encouragement, spending time discussing our faith, or just in silly moments playing games while we were working or walking around doing whatever, we grew closer not just as friends, not just as a youth group, but as a family. This trip wasn't just an opportunity for us to show the love of Jesus to others and to serve. It gave us the ability to show our love for each other. There were countless jokes made, activities done, and special moments formed, as well as relationships strengthened. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time today to share with you every special moment we shared throughout this trip, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. No amount of time would allow me to fully express the way we grew together during this trip. It was truly one of those moments where you just had to be there. I will be forever grateful that I and every other member of this group was able to go. And I just want to end on this really simple statement that in this group, because of the bonds we have created and strengthened, I see God. I see his love, I see his joy, and I see his intentions. He wants us to continue to grow with each other because as long as we do that, we will be able to continue our growth with him. Thank you.
Connor.
Hi, I'm Connor. Unlike the girls, I only wrote down a couple of notes, so wish me luck. This was my first mission trip with Woodcrest, and I wasn't really sure how much I wanted to come, to be honest, because I wasn't super close with any of the boys here, and I had to miss out on a trip with my friends, so that was already in the back of my mind. So I didn't exactly start out with the most positive mindset, but just being on the first leg of the trip, I could tell that I was in the right place. And I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about our experience with chapel. So the first day we got there, we started off with just some songs like we did every other day. And this was, the way that we worshiped was so much different than really I was used to and I'd ever done. So it was a new experience for me completely. But we met this super nice, cool dude named Elijah. He was 6'8", so he was a little bit intimidating. But it was super cool. The first day, the only thing Will told us was what our message was, and that was encouragement for the week, and he left us with that. So going in the next day, I was already kind of like, all right, what's this week going to be in store for us? And then the next day, after we returned from Yellowstone, he gave us these cards after we finished with chapel, and he said, go immediately back to your room and open it, just review it, read it 3 times, write down your first couple of thoughts. And I opened my card, and it was a happy birthday card. And I was like, all right, what is this? My birthday was 4 months ago. I wasn't really sure what it was about, and then I opened it, and it just had my name and the corny message inside. I was like, what is this? Why are you giving this to me? I appreciated it, but I was like, all right, what are we doing here? But I had faith in Will and what he was doing, and I knew that whatever he had planned was going to work out well for our group. And then the next night, on Monday, we were tired from digging up holes and pouring concrete, laying a path. So we got to chapel. I was tired. I was like, all right, I gotta stay on task. Focus up. What are we doing? Gotta stay awake. But he gave us these written notes that were the opposite of what he gave us the day before. It was a complete personalized message from Will that reminded me of some stuff that honestly I hadn't heard in a while. When people only see one side of you, it's you kind of lose sight of what you really are. So it was really cool to see that other people can see that side of me too. And that just really put me in good spirits for the rest of the week, to be honest. And it got me pumped up to show what I can do with the group, and it made me feel more connected right away. What I really wanted to talk about was on Thursday night, the night before we had our last chapel session, we'd been doing encouraging each other throughout the week, but on this night specifically, Will had us complimenting each other and encouraging each other, which is something that honestly I'm not used to, because at my school there's a lot of tearing down that goes on, but it was really cool to see other people building up and it was something that it made me regain a little bit of hope in the people that I was with, and it was really cool to see that. But not only did it feel good to get complimented, for me it almost felt better to compliment other people, to realize that I still have that in me. You know, everyone has a nice side to them, and it was really cool to know that I still appreciated that. But I'm so glad I went on this trip. I wouldn't take it back for anything, to be honest, and I really appreciate everything that Will, the boys in our cabin, just all the leaders. I appreciate everything that you guys did, so thank you so much.
Liam.
Good morning, church. I'm Liam, and I had a pleasure to be the photographer and videographer for this trip. And so during the work days, during kind of breaks, I would get to go and take videos and photos of everyone working. So I thought this was a unique experience and that I get to see growth throughout the trip. So first of all, in relationships, everyone grew and bonded together, as you heard everyone say. The first day was a little bit rocky during the work. Things were slow. And however, through that, we learned each other's strengths and weaknesses. And by the second day, we were just a machine. Everyone was working so hard and just knew what each person should do. Everyone also grew in their skills and knowledge. Some of us have never poured concrete, and so we learned how to prep and pour concrete. Some people demoed a bathroom and painted, put on siding, put on shingles. So all of us grew in ways of our knowledge, and so that just, again, increased our efficiency throughout the week. And then our encouragement, as everyone has said, our theme was encouragement, and just to see the encouragement go from just a little bit to like that was the main theme by the end of the week was just awesome to see. So thank you.
And Luke.
Good morning, church. I'll be our last speaker for today, so I want to start by thanking everyone who's came out today, how you've supported us with prayers and financial donations. And without everyone here, we could not have been on this trip, and these connections that everyone has mentioned could not have been made. The biggest thing I'm going to touch on is protection. One of our favorite running jokes throughout this bit was the fact that nothing we did was OSHA certified. I spent much of my time, along with my younger brother, on a 10-foot board between two ladders that continued to sag to a almost harrowing degree whenever we'd get close to each other putting on shingling. But seeing that between that, the hikes that we went on, as Avery mentioned, they were not blocked off. So I got to see God work firsthand in making sure that he was keeping us safe and continuing to bless us in how we acted. Secondly, it was maturity, really. This is my 9th mission trip I've been on. I've done 7 with Woodcrest, 2 others. And between all these trips, I've seen my group grow, and now being the oldest, I've seen how I can help my younger generation grow. And as this is most likely my 9th and, well, hopefully not 9th, but my last mission trip with the Woodcrest Student Ministry, unless Will begs me, of course, I'm thrilled to see how much our all the students have grown and continuing to carry on the mission work that my group has tried so hard to spread forward. So I want to thank everyone again. And as a word of encouragement to end off this trip, I want to share my life verse and something that Will shared with every single student here. It's Philippians 2 Timothy, 4:12. Do not let others look down on you because you're young, but set an example in faith, love, and purity. Thank you, church.
Yeah. Did you hear it? Did you listen to their heart? Yeah. We could talk about the places we went, the things we did, the events that happened. But parents, friends, Woodcrest, I challenge you to, on your own, talk to these students. Ask them about what their heart has learned, what God is showing them, what changes that they'll be making in their lives. Pretty awesome. I'd like the rest of the group to come up. remember what I said about the director, Jim, and what he told us was their goal? That everyone that came to camp would meet Jesus. Well, look at these people, these leaders, these students. Who do you see? Because I look at them and I see Jesus in every single one of them. It was an awesome, awesome missions trip. I want to thank Woodcrest for, again, your support. Financially, for your prayers to make this happen. It truly was wonderful. The tears, the lump in your throat right now, that's all real. It's because of it's the pride that we feel when we hear the stories of what our kids, our students did, not only for YAA, but for God and what they will do. Will, was there anything else you wanted to do to close out? Well, I have a very simple thought. And I have a commission for our students and young leaders. Go hug your family. They're your biggest support.
Thanks for putting up, not 2.5 hours, but we're a little over time, but appreciate you guys being here. They didn't run anything by me, what they were going to say. We talked about themes, and they ran with it themselves, and you can hear in their statements what this trip meant to them. And I can't take credit for that. We put the trip together not knowing what God was going to do, and not only did he blow expectations out of the water, but he grew all of us in ways we never imagined. And this is the church of now. This isn't the church of the future. These guys learned a lot about what it means to encourage each other, what it means to be encouraged. I think it was more awkward learning to take an encouragement and a compliment than it was to give, because it's not a big part of our daily lives. And that's how God looks at us. He looks at us in love and encouragement. And that's what we wanted to do. So feel free to ask them about the trip. Continue to pray for their hearts as they look ahead to the rest of the summer and the school year. It's easy to experience Jesus when we have chapel and worshiping and we're together all the time. It's a lot harder when you get back into the hustle bustle of everyday life. So be praying for this group, pray for the camp. And as Dan said, thank you for your encouragement. I am beyond encouraged and blessed right now. I'm so proud that God has me in this position as being the youth pastor. We have some that weren't able to be here this morning. And I know they would have loved to because they experienced this trip. But I'm proud of you guys. You know that. And this is a trip that I will cherish. This was one of my favorites ever, just because of what God did in and through this group. So I'm going to pray to close. So if you would extend a hand, if you're comfortable with that, I'm going to close and pray, and then we'll be done for the morning. Jesus, we thank you for everything that you do for us, that you give us what we need when we need it, but you also give us the desires of our heart. You answer prayers. You own cattle on 1,000 hills. You provided for us when we were down a van. You provided protection as we were out hiking. You kept us safe during work, and you grew us as a group, and we thank you for that, Lord. We truly see your Holy Spirit upon this whole thing. So I thank you that we had an opportunity to share just a snapshot of what we experienced for 10 days. And now, Holy Spirit, I ask that you would take these roots, these lessons, these moments, and magnify them in the lives of these students and leaders, that they would be salt and light wherever they go, that it wasn't just a trip in Montana, but it was the foundation and the start of you using them to spread your gospel. So we thank you for this morning. Thank you for this church. And we love you, Jesus. In your name, amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday.